But every day, like in undergrad, I would walk past a bar on my way to take the train. Finally, I went in the bar and I said, I'm a finance major. I can do your accounting at no charge if you let me eat here for free. And I know you need help accounting because you're a small business. You're a tavern. And so I went in there, and every day I would eat lunch there and eat dinner there, but I would once a week reconcile their books. Kind of always hustling. As time went on, I knew they owned the building. So I said, hey, I can live in an apartment here for free if you let me manage your bar. And I'm still going to school the whole time, but I'm working from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every night. And I'm doing their books and managing their facility to live for free. So I've always had like hustle in the brain. So when I graduated undergrad, I don't know if they were great opportunities, but I had opportunities. I had management experience. I could tend bar, I could wait tables, I could do all these things. Those aren't careers, but I wasn't in such a hurry to make a decision.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Brian Rosen. Brian is a third-generation veteran of the adult beverage industry and the General Partner of InvestBev, the largest private equity platform dedicated exclusively to the spirits and the adult beverage sector. Under Rosen's leadership, InvestBev manages over $500 million in total assets across equity, credit, and insurance strategies. Earlier in his career, Rosen led his own $100 million retail liquor enterprise, served as the partner at PwC in the adult beverage practice, and acted as a lead trade marketing consultant at Anheuser-Busch. He has been recognized 3 times as Retailer of the Year, the Wine Innovator of the Year, Forbes Best of the Web, and has been named to the Power Rankings Top 100 Global Beverage Leaders. He holds an executive leadership credential from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business and a degree in marketing and finance from DePaul University. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Brian.
Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very excited. Fascinating background, and you have so many impressive accomplishments, and most of it, if not all of it, it's in the booze industry. So that's near and dear to my heart.
It's near and dear to everyone's heart.
Exactly. Yeah, third generation veteran of the adult beverage industry. And let's talk about a fun question, though. Even people that know you fairly well, Brian, what would surprise them most about you?
I'm a 14-time marathoner and a 2-time Ironman finisher.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And so that's surprising to people because I'm in the elk business and they somehow don't go hand in hand. But,
Right.
but I'm in the fundraising business. We run equity funds, and one of the things I tell people when they always ask a question like that is, what would surprise us is that you can train the body to do anything, but the mind is the weak point for people. And if you've got someone in your universe, no matter what they're doing, if they are a athlete in some way, you've got this mindset of unstoppable, of perseverance, of never give up. And those are always the people that that you should have in your universe, just those kind of personalities. And so I always keep that Ironman marathoning thing in the back pocket. But when someone says, how come you don't ever quit? And I'll say, it's a mindset, and here's an example.
Right. Yeah, that's phenomenal. What was your favorite marathon?
I've done New York, I've done Chicago, I've done Columbus. There's Marine Corps is another one that runs around the monuments. My favorite marathon was any of them, just to be done with the thing. It's a super easy 20-mile run with an impossible 6 miles at the end.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm 55 years old. I'd love to be able to do one again. It's a function of time and ligament damage, but they're all good. Listen, anytime you can get out there and be healthy, then that's a win for all parties.
Yeah, that's great. So, so on the Ironman, did you do the full Ironman, the
When
marathon?
someone says to you, Jeff, Ironman, that's always the full.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's the half Ironman, the half marathon to me, and this is going to be controversial, but the half Ironman, the half marathon to me is like, who wants to do half of anything? I finished half my meal. I drove halfway to work. The half doesn't mean shit. It's the full. You got to do the full. That's the distance. Ironman is a business, and when I was doing Ironmans in the late 1990s, early 2000s, it was for the love of the sport. Now it's a business, so they create the Ironman, the half Ironman, right? Because it gets more participants in. It's a revenue stream. I don't do half anything. It's always full, and I just think about it. It's like people that celebrate the half. There's not only in athletics is that work. In business, hey, I half raised my capital. I half returned capital. I half closed the deal. I'm half liked by my office. There's no world where half works in anything but sport. And so to answer your question, long-winded and get off my soapbox, full Ironman, full marathon, full everything. That's what we do.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know where you grew up, but tell me where you grew up and what was fun for you growing up, what you love doing.
I am the son of a retailer. So when you grow up in an entrepreneurial house and you're the son of a retailer, you kind of grow up in retail. So what did I like to do? I like to see my parents, and the only way to see them was to go to work. So those were special times, being able to spend time with family. I mean, ideally, I'd much rather it be Disney World, than the stockroom of a liquor store. But that is what that is. And those are fun times for me. Growing up was a thing where we would just cherish family time. And to this day, those are my memories as a kid, is just spending time with family, regardless of location. And so those were things I did for fun that I enjoyed.
Well, your grandfather saloon got the first liquor license after Prohibition in 1933. And allegedly, I think possibly Al Capone was a patron. So maybe tell that backstory.
All alleged. We don't want trouble. Yeah. So we're an immigrant family. My grandfather came over from Russia, Ukraine, with $5 and a goat kind of thing, and he ended up sweeping floors for Capone somewhere in that world. And when Prohibition ended and liquor licenses started coming out in Chicago, Capone couldn't get one because of his ties to organized crime, etc. So he put my grandfather in business and said, hey, you can run this license for me, but you're going to give me everything you make. And so my grandfather, who's in broken English, said, sure, why not? I need a job. And that turned into, so kind of fast forward nearly 100 years, that became the largest retail liquor enterprise in the country. On the West Coast, your listeners would know it as Bevmo. On the East Coast, you'd know it as Total Wine or Stu Leonard's, but we were the original big box alc bev retailer globally. And we had stores all over that were 30,000 square feet or greater. And they all came out of that one license, in some cold day in 1933. And my grandfather gave it to my dad. My dad sold it to us, my brother and I. He understood commerce better. And then we sold that business to a private equity firm when I was in my early 30s. So about 2002 or so.
Was that a foregone conclusion? I mean, you love being with your family. Obviously, immigrant families are hard workers. You're 12 years old. You're like, hey, I'm going to be in the family business, or did you have other aspirations like being a doctor or, a world-class triathlon?
Yeah, no. I'm a 5'10" Jewish guy. There's no world class athletics in my future. I don't know if it was foregone. I thought about other careers after grad school, legal, and I have my MBA, so I could have done quite a few things. I came into the business when my father specifically needed us. My brother and I, we were going through growth. My father needed people around him he could trust. I'm going through the same thing with my son now. He is a private equity banker in New York. Where our offices are in Chicago, and I'm in a position where I need to bring him on board because I need people I can trust. I need people that are like-minded, that have the family interests at best interest. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion for me. I think it's the evolution of growing up in a family business. It's much easier to go towards the sun than away from it, if you will. And the sun, I mean SUN, not SON, but it's much easier to go towards the bright light. And so that's what I did. As I'm sure some of your listeners would know, family business dynamics are very complicated. Where does the family end and the business begin? Or the business end and the family begin? I wrestled with that for 15 to 20 years. Not easy, but that's the choice I made.
Yeah, I interviewed Bill Brandmeier here in Kansas City, and his family, his father broke away from Marion Labs, started Enturia, and they in 2007 sold for like $460 million.
Not a bad day.
And the whole family was involved in the business, and they literally exited the day the deal was final. So I go, what did you talk about after that at family dinners? He goes, oh my God, it was a huge transition because it was always about business.
Yeah,
like everybody.
I can relate to that. I mean, because we're in retail and because we were in Alc Bev, we don't get the holidays people get. We don't get 4th of July. We're working. We don't get Thanksgiving Eve with family or Thanksgiving Day. We work half a day on Thanksgiving Day, and our Thanksgiving meal is at 5:00 instead of noon. We miss all the games. Christmas Eve, we're working. Busy times. New Year's Eve, we're working. When we sold our business, I was the only one that stayed on in the CEO role. My father exited, my brother exited. It was not easy transition for either of them. My father subsequently passed, actually a year ago passed. People tie their identity up in their family business and who they are and what they stand for. And so when you take that away, this feeling of being lost is a real feeling. And it affects everything from Thanksgiving in the macro sense and then just a phone call to your family members in the micro sense. But everything is affected when you exit out of a kind of an entrepreneurial family business.
So when you left undergraduate at DePaul, did you go right to the family business or did you zigzag somewhere else and then come back?
So I've always been a hustler. That's kind of, my dad instilled that in me. I worked in bars when I went to DePaul University undergrad, and I was living in downtown Chicago, and every day, my father was a tough love kind of father. He's a Depression era kid, wasn't overly warm with his love. I can tell you that. And so now my therapist can rest easy. I've just outed myself. But every day, like in undergrad, I would walk past a bar on my way to take the train. In Chicago, there's an elevated train called the L, and I would take that to the downtown campus where the business school was. And I walked past a bar every day, and finally I went in the bar and I said, I'm a finance major. I can do your accounting at no charge if you let me eat here for free. The bar was called McGee's in Chicago. And they're like, well, who's this kid? I'm like, well, look, I don't need to steal your money because it's not who I am. And I know you need help accounting because you're a small business. You're a tavern. And so I went in there, and every day I would eat lunch there and eat dinner there, but I would once a week reconcile their books. Kind of always hustling. As time went on, I knew they owned the building. So I said, hey, I can live in an apartment here for free if you let me manage your bar. And I'm still going to school the whole time, but I'm working from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every night. And I'm doing their books and managing their facility to live for free. So I've always had like hustle in the brain. So when I graduated undergrad, I don't know if they were great opportunities, but I had opportunities. I had management experience. I could tend bar, I could wait tables, I could do all these things. Those aren't careers, but I wasn't in such a hurry to make a decision. My family, however, when you go into family business, you're often overpaid and underqualified. I was that for sure. But what I ended up doing was working in the family business during the days after graduation, and then working the bar business at night for just extra cash. Because, again, family business, my dad, here's $35,000 a year, kid, don't fuck it up. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to cover my nut here. You need to help me. So I took a job at the bars and did all that. And then when I went to grad school, the same. And then finally, I elevated myself enough in my family business to have a pay that allowed me to step away from other things. But I did not always know I was going to do that. I wanted to be a trader. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be in finance in some way. I became available at the same time the business began to grow and scale in a massive way. And so it just became what I ended up doing.
Yeah, so interesting. Just a quick question. When you were undergrad and working at McGee's, were drinks included with the meals or just?
Well, I can say this now because they're closed. Drinks I was fully partaking as a 19-year-old in the bar business. I was, back then we're in downtown Chicago, Lincoln Park, Chicago, in the bar business. It was a free for all. It really was. And it was a great way to understand entrepreneurial business that wasn't my own family. You get a good perspective when you work for other people. In the same way that I'm trying to hire my son, I would never hire him out of Northwestern, but I would hire him after working for 2 or 3 equity firms in New York. My father got me educated on someone else's dime about work ethic and about working for other people and about understanding the consumer and about how to make drinks, what goes into drinks. It seems minor, but it helps you sell. Those lessons were on someone else's dime. My dad was inadvertently smart in that regard, and everyone benefited. I benefited. The McGee's benefited from, they paid me $60 a night, $60 cash a shift. It was beer money, really, but I thought I was loaded. This is in 1989.
So interesting. You talk about, you get off the L and there's, bars right there. And I went to Manhattan College in the Bronx, 242nd Street on Broadway. And, that stop on the one train. And there was 5 bars within 100 yards of that's, coming down the steps. On the side.
It's funny that the same way, like now I live in suburbs of Chicago and I take the train to work sometimes to beat traffic. And even in the train station, the metro station is a bar, multiple bars, and a to-go place where you can take a 40-ounce beer on the train.
Right.
Drinking, no matter what the press kind of indicates as of late, drinking is really part of our culture, and it is a social lubricant. So whether you're drinking to remember or drinking to forget, it's not going anywhere. And those bars they may change hands, but they're bars, and they're there to take the pressure off from a day's hard work or to take the memory off of a day's hard work.
Yeah, there is a lot of press surrounding, the benefits or disadvantages of drinking. And, actually right before we got on here, I looked at, alcohol consumption by decade. And it, not that, well, I had a little bit to do with this, but it peaked in 1982 when I graduated college. So it's been
That was you?
Well, me and some of my friends, I believe, we definitely contributed to that. But obviously, it's hard to predict the future. But what do you see in terms of that, in terms of alcohol consumption going down? And do you see it flattening, or do you see it continuing to rise or fall?
I would be a fool if I came on and said nothing's changed. The world has changed. Let's be honest. Change to the positive, however. Drinking has not gone down because per capita it still is going up. It's flatline per capita. Now the population is changing and all of that. So as a segmentation of the population, it is drinking alcohol is going down. But what's going up in general are cannabis beverage drinks, are adaptogen drinks, are non-alc drinks, are energy drinks, are psilocybin drinks. There's a lot of the drinking category, the beverage category is growing. Alcohol is flat, but the beverage category is growing. And so in our equity funds, we have a portfolio approach. And with that, we try and capture not only what's growing today, but what's growing tomorrow. And so, a lot of those headlines about Gen Z's not drinking or this distillery's closing, they're true, but there's so much more nuance to the story. And so when I would caution you, Jeff, when you read some of that data, there is a deeper meaning. People are drinking less booze, but they are drinking more in totality. And there's hundreds of studies that would support that.
So it looks like when you sold the family business, did you pivot right to PwC? Because that was kind of an interesting. You go to a Power Four consulting firm,
Yeah.
right
So,
after being a kind of family run CEO.
well, I was on the couch. I was like sitting on the couch, and I sold the business. I stayed on as CEO for about a year and a half, and I realized that when private equity takes your business, you're really you're not left with. First of all, I had no authority anymore. I owned 20% of the business left. I sold 80%, and I had no authority. The private equity firm, as we do, is getting so into the muck of it all. The business began to suffer, and so I really didn't want to be on the deck of the Titanic. They had fired many of my key guys because typical private equity, you start with labor, right? If a guy's making $300,000 a year, you can have the same guy do the job for 150, and the only reason the first guy got 300 is because he's been there for 30 years. You get these annual raises, and it makes the P&L out of whack. And whenever a private equity firm buys a company, majority of a company, they look at all these things and say, how can we monetize this business? And so after a year and a half of watching my business kind of decline, not revenue, but in feel-good moments, which is also how you can measure a business. This is a family business, nearly 100 years old. And it was a shell of what we sold, a year and a half later. So someone in my business group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, someone called me and said, hey, Pricewaterhouse, PwC, is looking to create an adult beverage practice. And they don't know shit about adult beverage. And Ernst and Accenture are giving them the business, meaning eating their lunch, because they had a practice and PwC didn't. So I had all these connections of generations inside Diageo, Constellation, Pernod Ricard, Molson, Anheuser-Busch, et cetera, the big firms that can pay big consultancy fees. And so Pricewaterhouse brought me on board and said, hey, develop this practice. We'll pay you handsomely. We'll fly you to New York once a week and back from Chicago. Take it as far as you can. And I did that. And in 2 years, we had a $600 million billable hour practice. And then I left because, to your point, corporate life sucks, and wearing a tie sucks, and having to badge in and out of every bathroom I go in sucks, and so it just wasn't for me. I'm not, as you are learning probably here today, I'm not much for conforming, and a lot of those corporate jobs are all about that. And so I did my piece. It helped me later in my career in private equity, but it wasn't I wasn't long for it.
What was the biggest surprise, like a holy shit moment? Like, you're the CEO of your family business, you go to PwC, besides badging in and out of the bathrooms, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that was a surprise too. I'll tell you the biggest surprise is I went to dinner with my MD in the city and a client. And the client was a very powerful global beverage brand. Very powerful, very successful. And people consume their products daily, globally. The conversation had shifted in dinner to retail shelf placement and understanding the consumer and all of that. And I said to the chief operating officer, who was really the guys in these meetings, is not the CEO necessarily. It's really kind of an underling there. And I said, hey, if you do the following 5 things, your problem of price degradation or sales velocity going down or all that's going to go away, because I know from 30 years of operating the biggest retailer in the country that where the customer's retina moves when they walk into a store, and what shelf level, eye level, buy level means, and what you put there and why you put it there, and what will get your consumer to appreciate your brand. And I did all this, and the guy's like, great idea. Oh my God, this is great. Can you pass the mashed potatoes? This is great. I love it. How about another drink? All this happened at dinner. And on Monday, I get into the office and my MD called me in and he said, we have to have a chat. And I said, well, what about? And he said, you cost us $500,000. I'm like, what are you talking about? I only ordered the steak, and the guy's like, well, the client ended the engagement because you gave away the solutions before we had a chance to bill them for them. And that was a real eye-opening experience for me, because I'm like, isn't our job to make the client successful? And the answer is yes, it should be. the reality is the job is to bill hours. And
Right.
so this client ended the engagement way earlier than contracted for because they got to the solution way earlier. And it was an eye-opening experience for me in that it wasn't about doing right by the client, it's about doing right by the P&L. And
Right.
I knew right away that corporate life was not my jam. Now, mind you, I run a big company now, but back then I was in my late 30s and was idealistic, I guess. And it was very disappointing meeting in my eyes. It really was eye-opening and disappointing altogether.
Talk about, Brian, your leadership mentors. I mean, you're running a $100 million business. You're in a young president's organization, YPO, 34. Like, who are some of your mentors? How did you learn leadership and running, a company of that size?
It's not going to be a great answer for your listeners. I didn't have any mentors, to be honest. I did not have mentors. What I did have was my father was a high school educated guy and would outwork any fucker who tried to come after him. It was about work ethic, working hours, working harder, not smarter, my dad, not smarter, but harder. But it worked. I mean, we took a liquor store that would service 1,000 people a day per store. Think about that. That's Walmart numbers. We would do, in Christmas time, we do $500,000 a day per store, and we would have the highest average cart in the business. I learned leadership from working hard and always doing whatever I asked my people to do. Always. I never had a mentor because I wasn't smart enough to have a mentor. I want a mentor. To this day, now I have leaders that I communicate with at different levels, but to this day, I rue the fact that I didn't have a great mentor. I had a father who led with work, but I didn't have an intellectual mentor. I didn't have a business mentor. And YPO, and now Tiger 21, another group I'm in, but YPO was pretty instrumental in helping us turn that family business into something bigger. It spoke of having a board of directors, an outside advisory board, going to family business counseling. It spoke of how to raise capital, how to raise debt, how to use banks profitably. I mean, there's a lot of things that in a family business you just don't know. And the challenge with a generational family business like ours and others is that oftentimes the business grows over time, but the intelligence level of the members doesn't. So the business actually becomes dumber. I don't know if that's a word, dumber, more dumb. It becomes more dumb as time goes on, especially generational businesses that are handed down, because the underlings, or in Star Wars, they would call them the youngling. The younglings didn't have the desire to be better educated and better motivated and better networked than their parents because they had the benefit of high income or success. So to answer your question, no mentor, but a lot of watching and a lot of, this may be even further contrarian. A lot of our customers were smart financial people in Chicago. And I would always pick their brain for the 30 seconds they were in front of me. What do you do for a living? How do you do it? What does that mean? What is private equity? What is private debt? What is venture? What is hedge? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I would take those moments and try and learn from the people that I trusted, but no formal mentor program. And to this day, at 55 years old, I wish I did.
Did you think it was an advantage for you, Brian, being third generation to run the business, or what are your thoughts on that?
This is like, I feel like I'm on Oprah's couch.
Well, it is called the Corporate Couch Podcast, so there you go, Brian.
Well, I'll be laying down shortly. Third generation is always credited for killing family business. Third generation always has this notion that the first generation creates, the second generation grows, the third generation kills, and the fourth generation buries it. I don't know if there's benefits or not benefits. I think it really, the challenge with family business is that family tends to think they have all the answers and no one can do it better. So competition comes in that's better organized, better capitalized, better intellectualized, and can eat your lunch. That was our case, right? We competition was coming in and we had to respond. So we sold the company. That was our response. I don't know if third generation, if I had other options. My family called me in to work. I worked. I grew. When I came in the business, it was doing $12 million store when I left the business was doing $100 million. I knew how to grow a retail footprint operation, a brick and mortar operation, but I didn't have any of the tools that I really could have used at the time to turn our regional chain into a global juggernaut. I just didn't have the tools, and I didn't know how to ask for them.
It seemed at some point, I think it was like 2015, you went to beverage strategy. What was your learnings as the COO and eventually the president COO there?
So I created that business. That's the second business that I sold. The whole notion was taking what I did at PwC and applying it where I'm in the driver's seat, where billable hours weren't my goal. My goal was to actually help these brands. And the way I looked at it is mathematically. In the liquor business, in the alc bev business, you've got a 3-tier system that you have to distribute beverages by. There's a wholesaler, a retailer, and then the supplier. There are more brands than there were wholesalers, and there were more brands than there were salespeople at the distributor level. So I created a business that said, your distributor is not going to pay attention to you. Yet, if they don't pay attention to you, they may delist you out of their inventory because your goods aren't selling, and they will delist 10% of their inventory. And so I created a business called Beverage Strategies, where we put full-time salespeople on the ground in 6 states to sell alc bev and then relay the orders back to the distributor. The independent brands needed people because the distributors didn't pay attention, and the stores needed higher margin goods because they needed to make money, because if you're buying Tito's or Absolute or Kendall Jackson Chardonnay or whatever, it's a price to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom on margin, because everyone's posting price and saying, "Oh, I'm $7.99 here. I'm going to be $7.49 here." So what you're really doing is eating your own margin to get the customer in the store. And what I said to the retailers through BevStrat was, carry different products. When the customer gets to your store, sell them a different product that's higher margin. And so I built that business. I started that business in 2015. I sold it in totality in 2019. It was a great exit right before COVID. So I really hit the lucky stick there. At the same time, I started InvestBev Capital. At the same time, I started BevStrat. BevStrat was the working business. InvestBev Capital at the time was the hobby. And then when I sold BevStrat, I focused full time on InvestBev Capital.
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
It was just so fascinating to me that PE play in the alcohol, adult beverage industry, and you're kind of the only PE firm specializing solely on that. So talk about, the why of that and how you've grown since kind of the hobby days till today.
The business was formed in 2015, and it was a lifetime of learnings that helped me kind of articulate the investment thesis. The investment thesis really was, people are drinking, brands fail, brands succeed, but the ones that succeed, roughly 5% of the ecosystem, but the brands that succeed generate an 18 to 20 multiple on revenue at exit. You look at Casamigos for $1.1 billion, you look at Aviation Gin for $800 million. Those are the headlines, but there are brands that trade every day at $50 million price tags that are doing $2 million in sales, because it's so rare to have a hit in alc bev that the people that buy these businesses overpay. That was the dynamic. The other dynamic in our firm was that we invest in raw distillate barrels of bourbon because they're recession resilient. They're naturally accretive. They go up in value every year because they age, and it's a hard asset. So I took these two things together and I said, let me create an investment vehicle that allows people to invest in a category they would not have access to ever before. There's no way that Joe Independent guy, Main Street Joe, is going to invest 300 grand that he has in whiskey barrels in Kentucky. There's no way that Main Street Joe is investing in Casamigos. Doesn't have access. And so by spinning up the firm, we started to create some equilibrium in the access department. And that was 2015. Fund 1 was about $33 million raised, including sidecars. Fund 2, $71 million. Fund 3, $71 million. Fund 2, $33 million. Fund 1, $5 million. Fund 4, $51 million. Fund 5, $250 million. So all in all, we manage about $500 million on equity alone. And then we spun up the credit division, private credit, which is $150 million, because we wanted to get the consumer or the investor in this kind of ecosystem. And then we spun up an insurance piece at $100 million, and then a real estate division at $50 million. So all in all, we managed just short of $1 billion, all for Alc Bev. And it's been a great ride. We've been named Preqin Growth Fund of the Year last year. This year, Inc. Magazine Founder Fund have had great success doing a lot of these things.
Since you brought up tequila, I'm the tequila person. What are your thoughts? I heard you on another podcast. I was amazed that there's 62 different celebrity tequilas. But
Horrible.
Why'd you tell the listeners about your thoughts in the celebrity tequila market?
I think that whole market's full of shit. I think that celebrities. Here's the challenge with celebrities, and I say this publicly all the time. And by the way, in our portfolio, we have celebrity tequilas. So I play in the pool that I swim in, but I'm against the deep end of that pool. When you align a brand with a celebrity, you've aligned your successes to a celebrity. And they're humans, right? They get caught doing nefarious things in their personal lives. They get bad credibility. Ciroc vodka is a great example. Ciroc vodka was a top 10 vodka for years, and then Puff Daddy or P. Diddy or Diddy or Sean Combs, call him what you will, he went left of center on the law. And now that brand I could pick that brand up for nothing. It's hard to align yourself with these things. Then you've got this challenge of authenticity. You look at Tom Holland as a $150 million valuation, non-alcoholic beer. That's authentic. Tom Holland is a recovering alcoholic. People can get behind that. John Mulaney, he's in our portfolio. The comedian, he's a recovering alcoholic. People can understand that, but there's no real tie between Kendall Jenner and 808 tequila. There's just no tie. There's no authenticity. People want to invest in authenticness, especially this new generation that is fueled by social media, etc. It's hard to find an authentic celebrity. And then conversely, it's super hard to find a celebrity to stand behind a table in a liquor store to sell bottles of their brands, to put the effort in, not just the name. Bruno Mars owns a rosé wine. I've never seen him in a store in my life. Conversely, Bruce Willis was the advocate for Bartles and James coolers back in the day, if you recall. He would go to liquor stores and stand behind a table and sell and sign bottles. Mark Wahlberg goes to Walmart and hawks his tequila. So the Rock doesn't go to Costco and stand behind a table, but he's always on his brand. So the challenge is to find celebrities that understand how it works. They can get a huge exit for their sweat equity, but they need to do the work. Someone who just lends their name to a brand is deemed inauthentic by the consumer, and the consumer may buy it once, but they may not buy it twice, period.
Yeah.
And so when we've got brands in our portfolio that are celebrity brands where the celebrity didn't do shit and the brand failed, and then we've got brands where the celebrity did a great job and the brands did well. It's just a matter of tying your horse to a horse that is apathetic about walking forward.
Several years ago, my son and one of my daughters and my son-in-law lived in Orlando, and Bryan Cranston and his partner, they were on Breaking Bad. Yeah, we're at the bar with their two amigos, Mezcal, I think it is, or whatever the brand is, and they were there. And
Dos Amigos.
She filmed them.
Yeah.
Dos Amigos.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You will go to a liquor store and remember that moment and buy that brand. And that's what all of those things help support. You cannot phone it in. You cannot. The days of making big coin in celebrity brands are really coming to an end. The heyday was Clooney, Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively. But for every The Rock, you've got a Kevin Hart. People don't know Kevin Hart's brand. He's got a tequila brand. A$AP Rocky's got a tequila brand. There are plenty of people. Matthew McConaughey has got a tequila brand called Los Pantalones, like the pants,
Right.
Great, very fun. But Matthew McConaughey is also hawking Lincoln Navigators, right? And he's also hawking AT&T or State Farm Insurance or one of those things along with Woody Harrelson. If you stand for everything, you stand for nothing.
Right.
And you got to get behind your brand. And these people don't do that. And the consumer sees it, period.
I can talk tequila all day long. I have at least, I'm not going to promise this, but one last question.
Yeah, sure.
I was just shocked. I went to a tequila tasting a couple of years ago, and I was just surprised at like name brands like a Don Julio, possibly even Casamigos, Patron. They have additives in them. I didn't realize that. I just would love your thoughts on additives and kind of high end tequila.
Well, there's a class action lawsuit right now against Casamigos saying additive free when he has additives. Again, people didn't care about additives until they did. Until this movement of longevity and extension of life, and Peter Attia and all these different things talking about, he's in the news maybe too much, but
Right.
But this whole longevity movement and this better for you movement spurned a no additive movement. I don't have a feeling about it because people are choosing that as a horse to ride on when it's been there all along. It's only the additives have been there. The problem is new.
Right.
The awareness is new, but the additives have always been there. And tequila is a challenge because you've got agave pricing, you've got tariffs now because it all has to be made in Mexico. Tequila is having a moment of pullback right now.
What are your challenges right now? Not challenges, but what are you looking forward to in the next 3 to 5 years for InvestBev, your company?
Your question's timely. I have my team coming down to Miami for a corporate retreat next week. We want to be the number one financial source for the adult beverage industry, whether it's equity, credit, real estate financing, PO financing, factoring, what have you. That's our goal. We're really on the path to be there. And as I get closer to 60 years old, that is my mission, to continue to grow the firm and to continue to be a source of relief for an industry that the banks don't necessarily play in. So the banks retreat from this space, partly because of headlines, partly because they don't understand it. So we want to step in there, and we're doing that. And that's one of my investors in our Fund 5 is the largest private equity firm on earth that wrote us a $100 million check. They're not in the fund because of my overtly handsome looks. They're in the fund because they understand the asset class. They understand what we're trying to do, and they want to be a part of it. So that's my goal. That's everything I do every day is angled towards being the number one solution for the adult beverage industry, finance-wise.
I saw in one article, there was something you did with the fund with a bourbon barrel arbitrage.
Yeah.
So just pretend we're at your favorite bar in Chicago. I maybe have had 2 or 3 glasses of tequila. How would you explain what that is to me?
Any lay person, in this case with your 3 glasses of tequila, I'm going to put you in that box. Any lay person knows that when you go to a liquor store or a wine shop, Macallan 15-year-old, which is a brand, is more expensive than Macallan 12-year-old by $30, $40, maybe $100 in some cases. The only difference between those two items is age. So we created an arbitrage play where we buy barrels of distillate that become bourbon. We hold them, they age in the barrel, they become more valuable over time. And then we sell them at the peak of their value to a brand that needs 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old juice. The dirty little secret in the bourbon industry is that many of the brands on your shelf at whatever liquor store you frequent is all the same shit. It is all the same. There are 5 contract distillers in Kentucky that make juice for 4,000 brands. It's all the same. So if you own the supply, which is what we do at InvestBev Capital, if we own the supply, then we get to dictate price on exit. That's the arbitrage play. And in arbitrage, there's three inputs, supply, demand, and time. We control the supply, we have the time, and the demand remains strong, price goes up organically. And that is a lot of our thesis, which allows us to return capital profitably to our LPs.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and that I'll drink a good bourbon, but it's just been amazing, the growth and the popularity, and going down to the Bourbon Trail and Tennessee and doing that tour and all that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the firm allows. The lay person or the everyday person had no way to invest in the asset class. It was always guy A trading with guy B. And we came down in 2015, came down and said to Kentucky, and I said, I'm going to put a $5 million marker down, and I have no brand to sell. I have no brand to put it in bottles. I just want the barrels. I'm going to give you $5 million, which I did. And that turned into a $19 million return in about 18 months. And that was a thesis tester that proved the thesis true. And then I just went on to scale that to where we are now. And bringing along with me regular people, limited partners, investors that otherwise would not have access to that class of investable asset. They would never have access. And so we created that.
Talk about the cannabis beverages and the THC beverages. Are they, where are they going, and are they regulated by the same body that regulates alcohol? I'm just curious.
Cannabis beverage is a really wonderful additive to the beverage community. And that's why when I said to you earlier in this conversation that people are drinking different, this is one of the different things they're drinking. We own a brand called Cann, C-A-N-N, #1 most recognized cannabis beverage brand. We own another brand called Willie's, which is from the founder of, or not the founder, but from Willie Nelson, who's a known joint smoker, for 75 years.
Yeah, he quit smoking, but gummies are still in play, I've heard.
Oh, well, good. They're in play in my house as well. The cannabis beverage movement is a way for people to still have a sessionable activity, but not feel this hungover, lethargic feeling the next day. People want to get a little buzz going. They want to feel good. Cannabis beverage is low dose, calming, slow and steady, feel good. And the reason, just for the record, the reason why cannabis beverage has proliferated as of late is because the liquor companies have not made great products for 20 years. They've made the baseline stuff, the regular beer, not craft, but the regular Anheuser-Busch products or Miller Coors products, what have you. There's nothing to them. So the consumer wanted more. And the consumer went into the market and put their desire out there, and cannabis answered. With Delta 9, which is a kind of a hemp-derived version of it, you see it everywhere. You see it in end caps at grocery stores now. You see it in your 7-Eleven or Circle K stores. I mean, it is definitely for the future. And part of the government reopening bill that happened late last year, there was a little bill in there that talked about these brands have to get regulated. We look forward to that because we want to be distributed through the 3-tier system. We want to be distributed through the beer network. We want to pay our taxes, these brands, I should say, pay their taxes to the appropriate governing bodies. That's what's next for cannabis beverage. But if it gets outlawed, there's only 2 things growing right now in alc bev: RTDs, which is ready to drink pre-mixed cocktails, and cannabis beverage. You take away cannabis beverage, you've shuttered the whole hospitality industry and liquor stores and bars and everything. It can't happen. So we have good confidence that there'll be an agreement reached by New Year's Eve on hemp and cannabis.
What do you think, Brian, in terms of the basic general population? What's their biggest misconception in the adult beverage industry?
I think that moderation is always a challenge. Drinking doesn't mean getting drunk. You can have a glass of wine at dinner without having 3. And I think that the Generation Z is the first to really realize that. I'm not sure what generation I am or what generation you are, probably the same. I don't know, are we X? Are we boomers? I don't know what they call it. My kids will call me a boomer, I think.
Yeah, I think you're X. I'm a late stage boomer, early stage X, I'll call myself.
Fine. But so when I came up in the system, the drinking system, through 19 years old forward, is you drink. You go to a bar, you have 3-4 beers. You go out to dinner, you have 3 glasses of wine. That's just what you do. What COVID taught the drinking public was that because they were abstinent for so long, they couldn't get to liquor stores. If you recall, you're stuck in your basement. You couldn't get to bars. So when they've come back now 3 years later, they've come back to the industry. They've come back with this whole notion of moderation, that it's okay to have a gummy to start your night and a glass of wine at dinner, and then that's your night. This younger generation has taught my generation and older that moderation is the excuse the pun, but the buzzword for the industry, and it's up to the industry to respond. That wasn't a thing because there was no, it's kind of like, I would equate it to my least favorite time of year is that week between Christmas and New Year's. And it's my least favorite time of year because no one answers emails and no one works. And I'm working and I like to work. And that's my personality. It does feel as though the world stops for a week. You catch up on emails, you look through old stuff, you get organized for January 1st. That's what COVID did for Gen Z. When January 1st came, the equivalent for them, which is the end of COVID, they came back to beverage, but they came back in a much more measured way. It was a full reset. And that's exactly what happened to the industry. And, COVID is to blame or to thank for it, depending on which side of the transaction you're on. I think that's a huge ad for people, that drinking is not stopped. No way. It can't, it won't. It's part of who we are as humans. It's a social lubricant. It makes every activity more sessionable. What has happened, however, is that people are drinking with moderation. They're focusing more about they want to get to the gym the next day as opposed to get drunk the night before. And that becomes their level of importance. That was the blessing of COVID, probably the only blessing. But it really shifted the whole dynamic of how people drink, which I think is really interesting, but is it currently at play right now?
Speaking of going to the gym next day, what is your kind of fitness regime right now?
Every day I go to the gym. I mean, I would maybe one day off a week, take a shitload of vitamins. I go to a functional doctor down here in Miami where they take your blood and they tell you where you're deficient and they give you vitamins to supplement that. I do a lot of cold plunge, infrared sauna. I probably walk or run 50 miles a week now, bike ride a little bit. My generation is very concerned about fitness and about longevity and about feeling good. My dad, as I mentioned earlier in the show, passed away actually a year ago tomorrow. And he played basketball, full court basketball every day until he was 80. And he was known for it. Our stores had hoops in them. He would shoot baskets in the store for discount for people. My notion in watching my father age is that it's one thing to be physically fit, but you have to be mentally fit as well. So I'm trying to do everything I can to be both, be physically fit and mentally sharp. And that's my focus as I kind of get through the turnhouse here, on the golf course of life. And that does include drinking, by the way. And it does include cannabis beverage, and it does include gummies, and it does include testosterone and vitamins and all of the things. Because if we're going to live longer as a cohort, then you want to live longer healthy. Otherwise, what's the point of living longer? I don't need to sit in a wheelchair and watch cartoons when I'm 88. I want to be thriving. And so that's the goal that I have every day with my fitness regime.
So sorry to hear about your dad passing a year ago. Brian, if you had one supplement, you're on a deserted island, you get to take with you, what are you taking?
I don't know, because this doctor sends me 25 pill boxes and I just take what she tells me. I have no idea what I'm taking, to be honest. I really don't know, but a lot of them are around like cleaning kidneys and heart disease and prostate cancer and liver disease and all those things that you don't really think about. They say that 80% of men die with prostate cancer, but 20% know it. So you may die of old age, but you may have prostate cancer and just not know it, which is a real thing, right? It's like, it's one of those exams that no one wants, that no one gets, so they don't do it. And so I'm trying to avoid all these things. So I take a prostate pill, I do all that kind of shit, but I don't know if I'm doing any good or any bad, to be honest. It's just something that I'm starting to feel passionate about because I want to live wonderfully every day and be impactful in my life.
I feel the same way as you do. I take a lot of supplements, have for a long time, and people go, I mentioned a supplement. They go, "Is that working?" I go, I really have no control group because I take so many different ones. I don't know which is, more impactful than the other, honestly. So.
It's amazing. I mean, there's take this in the morning, take this at night, take this in the middle of the day. All these things, I have no idea what works, what doesn't work. I never felt badly, so I don't know if I feel good. Like I always feel good, so I don't know if I feel better than good. I don't know. But look, I think that my generation takes health very seriously because it's important. If you're going to live longer, you want to live better longer. And so I'm an advocate for all of those things. That includes drinking, for the record here. And that includes gummies and cannabis and all of those things, because you can, if you live to 100, but you have a very boring life, that's not fun either. And you got to, the balance is between education, fun, sociability, and health. And so that's the tightrope I walk.
What are you drinking after a long day at the office or whatever, or to celebrate something? What's your go-to?
I really don't drink. I drink non-alc beer. I like Heineken 0.0. Plug for Heineken. Sponsor the podcast. I drink. I drink athletic beer. And then look, last night for dinner I had a gin and tonic. I had a Hendrix and tonic. I drank half of it, and I don't know why I ordered it, because I felt bad for the bartender probably. Maybe one day a week I have more than 2 drinks, but generally it's a non-alc beer. It's a lot of water, a lot of coffee. I never was a drinker, and maybe that's because I grew up in the business. Never had an issue. No one in my family had an issue, but I've seen enough people come and go in my life that use beverage as a support system that I just never was a way I wanted to go.
What's the best bar city not named Chicago?
Oh, Miami's got a great kind of, Miami does, New York, of course. A good bar is a function of good drinks, good vibe, good music, period, and good crowd. I like going, like I go to New York once a month. I like going to New York because it's like an older city, in that the people that, in Miami here, it's a younger city. In Chicago is a great city, but it's so fucking cold all the time. It'll be cold till June, so I like the New York bar scene, the bar restaurant scene, because it went from going to bars to going to restaurants with great bars. And then it's just going to morph into, going to a mahjong tournament. But, I think Miami, New York, Chicago, LA, all good options there.
Brian, I love getting great leadership advice from people like you for 2 groups of people. One's that recent college or maybe even high school graduate that's going to start their professional career and get that first professional job after they finish their education, at least formal education. What advice do you have for that person?
Fail often. My best successes have come out of my failures. And I know that, like, if you listen to Professor Galloway or any of these super smart guys, and it's like, use your 20s to fuck around, use your 20s to experiment with your career. I 100% agree. My great successes have come out of my failures. People will look at my selling of Sam's and say that was a great success. And it was, but it was a failure because I left and it didn't go the way I wanted to go in my mind. PwC, great success there, but I failed. I failed that I didn't understand the rules of corporate America. I didn't understand my role, in totality, and it's a failure. I look at failures as the number one learning thing. And you can't, and as you get older, kids, family, mortgages, all that jazz, you can't fail as much. You lose the ability to fail and pivot. So I failed plenty. I've reinvented plenty in my life. That is what you have to do. If you don't do it, you're going to be regretful, I feel. And that would be my guiding principle to people that are just getting out of school now.
The second group's, anybody can be a leader at a company. You don't have to have people under you in an org chart and be responsible for them. But those that do take that path of going from an individual contributor to now being responsible for a team of people, what advice do you have for them as they begin that leadership journey?
These things are all hard because being in leadership doesn't mean you're a leader. It just means you're in leadership. And one of the things that I have learned to do, but didn't always do, is this notion of let the team win first as a leader. Don't take the credit for the win. Don't upstage your team. It's more important to have a team that buys into the vision. And the way they buy into the vision is with respect, with being heard, being listened to, and not just in the office, but publicly. When you are out in public with your team, acknowledge them as the reason you're able to be out in public. I can't get here without my team. My team has done this. I want to recognize these people. I'll give you a great example. We have a holiday party every year for the firm. A year ago, so not 2025, but 2024, I wrote down the accomplishments of everyone on my team. And then I read them at the holiday dinner. This person did this person did this, and it went on for about a half hour. And I was acknowledging every single person. I thought that was leadership. I thought I was doing great by the team. And in the feedback that came after the holiday dinner was, you didn't acknowledge what the person felt was their best accomplishment of the year. You acknowledged what you thought was the best accomplishment for the year. And then this past year, 2025, I gave the team a directive and I said, you guys list 3 accomplishments you're most proud of for the year. And they took ownership in that task. And they belted with pride at the top of their lungs at this dinner what they are most proud of. And it changed the whole dynamic of the dinner and how they feel they've helped the firm, not how I feel. My goal personally could be different than their goal for the firm and for myself. And so when I switched the lens and let them direct the movie, it was better. And I'm 55 and that was a learning. That was feedback that came to me from last year. I listened to it. I heard it. I didn't feel great about it because I'm thinking, oh my God, I've done great by my team. I've announced their accomplishments in front of a room full of people. And that was not received well. I heard the feedback, switched it around. And the feedback in 2025 dinner was, oh my God, thank you for letting me have a voice. Thank you for letting me speak, all of that. And so 55 years old, I'm on my 3rd or 4th career and still learning every day. And as you get older, that is super important. You have to keep learning and you have to keep listening, not just speaking, but listening. And I think that's where the good leadership comes.
I love that advice, Brian. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the Corporate Couch today. I just had you're an honor to have on my podcast, and it was great meeting you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Joe, I don't know about you, but Brian, to me, it's the guest you want to have on the Corporate Couch. The storied history, we're bringing Al Capone in the mix, the success of running a family business and being 3rd generation. His grandfather who started was an immigrant. It's a great American success story. They built the, Sam's Wine and Spirits into the largest independent retail liquor and wine supplier in the U.S., sold it for $100 million to private equity. And I loved the beginning. What would surprise people about you that know you even fairly well? And they said, well, I've done 14 full marathons and 2 full Ironmans. Uh-huh. And then he was like hard stop on anyone that did a half marathon or the triathlon light or a half Ironman. He goes, what's his half? When I was doing it, it was a thing. You were testing yourself when, now it's a business. So now they get more people to sign up because it's easier to do a half than a full. And then there's this mindset, you can train your body to do anything, but he goes, the mind is the weak point, mm-hmm. Right? He said, that's what stops people. And that's what type of people he looked for, when he was hiring, perseverance, grit, work ethic. He had a strong work ethic. Yeah, I thought he's just so good. And then we got into, I'm a tequila person myself. I'll have a nice bourbon, but I like tequila. And he, gave me the lowdown, gave us the lowdown on celebrity tequilas. And he was anti any celebrity that were just doing it.
He had a few opinions about.
Yeah, like he liked Bryan Cranston, who has a mezcal with his colleague from Breaking Bad, which I always forget his name. They have Dos Amigos, I think, or something like that. A mezcal, which I have had. It's very good. Yeah, and he had so many insights on just the, you see a lot in the news that, younger generations are not consuming as much alcohol, but he goes, it's adult beverages. So maybe alcohol is flat, but, you have cannabis drinks now. And his company, which is another fascinating thing. I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but his company is helped providing funding for Willie's cannabis drink, which is Willie Nelson's. Go get him, Willie. He's 94, 93, still doing it.
Still doing
that guy. Well, and speaking of aging, like his father played basketball daily until he was 80 years old or something like that. That's incredible. And he's Brian is very, he's looking for longevity and not just, he said, I don't want to watch cartoons all day when I'm 88 years old. I want to be active and flourishing. And I could have talked to him all day. It's just a really, really fun conversation for me. What did you get out of the episode, Joe?
It was great. You got to believe that a lot of that is in his genes. That his grandfather could come over from the old world
with a goat,
and start this business. His dad builds it into this business, and then he has it. You just think he cannot not succeed in whatever he's doing. Whatever direction his life is going to go in, it's going to be.
Yeah. What about when he was in college? How he was making money?
How he made money in college by working on the books, and when he's 18 years old, working on his books in a bar, and then they said, or he said later on, I tell you what, if you give me room and board, I'll manage your whole building, and that could have if he had stayed with that could have built a real estate empire or something.
There you go.
You never know where it's going to go.
Well, and actually, he wasn't making money. It was just a swap out.
It was a swap.
Room. He got free food at first for the accounting work, and then he got free room and board upstairs of the bar by managing it.
But now he makes money by buying and selling arbitrage in bourbon barrels of bourbon.
Yeah, and investing in any adult startup. Yeah,
you can go to his fund or something, and you can buy into this fund that owns thousands of barrels of bourbon in some Kentucky warehouse or something.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
His definition of arbitrage is it's supply and demand and time, which is kind of interesting, so that they can... Bourbon does nothing more than just age and get better, apparently.
Right.
So the longer that you hang on to it, the better, meaning the more expensive or the more value it's going to be. And then you can sell it whenever you sell it. I think that's great. I wrote down this line about whether you're drinking to remember or drinking to forget. And I wrote down, I said, that sounds like a Billy Joel song.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like the kind of song, the microphone smells like a beer.
Yeah.
I just had that in my brain all the time.
The piano sounds like a carnival, and the microphone
smells like a beer. The one story that he told that really hit home for me was when he was working for PwC, which was apparently a very short career. And he had dinner with a potential client and essentially gave away the store. And he gave the client the solution to their problem, and so they ended up not being a client or not being billable for it. And he got in trouble for that, saying, "Man, you only give away that much when you're actually billing." And I've got a little bit of experience with that because I worked for a couple of years for a big consulting firm, not as big as PwC, but where I was billed out hourly. And we were warned about that. If you see a client on the verge of something, that you give away just enough to make sure that you get billable, and then you get the business, and then you tell them what the answer to their problem is. But you don't give it away too soon, or else they'll just turn around and use it and walk off on you. So that was very familiar to me. But the whole story I thought was just really interesting and a very enjoyable interview. I loved it.
Well, another thing for me was, when you can bring in Al Capone into it. Al Capone supported his grandfather's saloon, Sam's Saloon, and he got the first liquor license after Prohibition in Chicago.
If a story has Al Capone in it, it's...
Brian's a legend.
So many stories like that, and I get the idea that he didn't tell you all the stories, so we could have him back.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And he could have more stories to tell you. So it's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
No, I love that. So, Joe, I've been in a 3-day training class of Mo Bunnell's company, Bunnell Idea Group. 3 days was great. I'm lacking on sleep, though, because I didn't sleep well in Atlanta. So make me laugh.
You
Joe.
need a little something, huh? Okay. Well, This is a statistician joke. So only the statisticians will get it this time, okay? 3 statisticians go hunting, and they see a rabbit. So one of them shoots at the rabbit, and he misses it to the left side. The other one shoots at the rabbit and he misses it to the right side. The third one says, "Bullseye."
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.